This episode is brought to you by DraftKings. This NHL season has been as predictable as a puck rolling on its edge. No one knows where it's going, but that just means there's time for your favorite team to figure things out and games left for you to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to episode 252 of Empty Betters. I'm your host, Harrison Scholes. I'm going to toss it across the screen to my co-host, Mr. Nick Manella. What's going on, my friend?
Not a whole lot, boys. We are in crunch time. Trade deadline officially over. We got March Madness is going to start ramping up here soon. We've got the Frozen Four tournament coming, and most importantly, the Stanley Cup playoffs are just a little over a month away.
Pretty wild. This is probably one of the if not the best time of the regular season, right after trade deadline, where we spend the next 3 weeks, looking at strength of schedule, playoff odds, who's getting in, who's getting out, all that good stuff, which we will definitely talk about on this episode. But before we get to all that, I'm going to introduce my other co-host up in Wisconsin, Mr. Mac Vogel. What's going on?
Yeah, what's up, guys? I echo what Nick said. It's a good time of year. I just today got our March Madness pool set up for my office. I run every year for them, so that's always a good sign that spring is coming. And of course, like you guys said, it's that time of year where it seems like after every NHL slate at the end of every night, I'm checking the standings, see what's changed, see what's plausible, doing the math in my head of who we might play, who I don't want to play, all that kind of stuff. So excited to talk about that today.
It is standings watch time of year for sure. I had like my first couple days of that this past week, so it's always nice to get back to crunch time, but yeah, it just means everything's getting a little bit more serious right now.
Absolutely. So we got a lot to cover from over the weekend and some news earlier this week. So we're going to dive right into it. We're going to start this episode off with some relatively fresh news that just came over yesterday. But Aaron Ekblad has been suspended 20 games for violating the NHL Performance Enhancing Substances Program. He's going to miss the remaining 18 regular season games that Florida has, which will then leak into the playoffs, meaning he'll miss the first two playoff games for the Panthers. Ekblad is the first player to be suspended for violating the league's PED program since Nate Schmidt in 2018. Ekblad did release a statement via the NHLPA. I'm reading this in quotes. The news that I had failed a random drug test was a shock. Ultimately, I made a mistake by taking something to help me recover from recent injuries without first checking with proper medical and team personnel.
Yeah, and I also got word from sources close to the team that Milwaukee's Best Ice fantasy hockey team has released Aaron Ekblad from the squad, being that he will not be able to play in any more regular season contests. That is a backbreaker, immediate drop, and the team is reeling to find another steady Eddie defenseman to compete in the postseason. So we'll keep everybody updated on that with my very close sources to the Milwaukee's Best Ice fantasy hockey team.
Big if true.
Oh, thank you for that, GM Vogel.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Um, yeah, I don't really have too much to say. I think this is probably one of those weird instances where he was taking something to heal, and maybe there was an ingredient that he wasn't aware of on the nutrition label. It doesn't sound like this is some type of steroid thing that people usually think
Right.
of.
You guys remember what happened to Backstrom like at the Olympics way back when? Wasn't that at the Olympics or was that he like took some maybe it was the playoffs. I remember he took like allergy medicine or something like that and something like this happened to him too where he got suspended for a couple games because they like it showed up the
Oh
same
yeah.
as like a PED. So I immediately thought of that and wondered if it's something like that where like you said Harry, maybe it's just like an ingredient in like
Right.
some type of narcotic that is present in what they're testing for and also in whatever he took. But yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, Harry, you mentioned the Nate Schmidt thing. It kind of seems like it's similar to that because what Nate Schmidt missed like 30 plus games, 40 plus games or something, and he was just adamantly saying like, "Hey, I was working with a nutritionist, working with like a recovery specialist or whatever. They had me taking this thing, and I guess it's one of the myriad of things that's on that list for the NHL. So, I mean, good on him to come out and say right away, it's like, hey, it's not like I'm on drugs. It's not like I'm doing HGH or steroids or anything. It's, it was clearly an accident. And yeah, it's kind of crazy, just like how strict this list is of like all the things that you could pop positive for on it.
I just fact checked this because I was curious. It looks like Schmidt also got 20 games
Oh,
prior
okay.
to the 18-19 season. So, yeah, Nick, I thought it was longer than that, but I guess it makes
Same.
sense. It's the same.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I think we all kind of pull for the Cats on here to a certain extent. Not a team that we necessarily hate, but obviously they've had a lot of success the past few seasons. So, wishing the best for them kind of helps that they got Seth Jones in there. Makes you wonder if they knew.
I
Um,
also just fact checked. Backstrom was initially suspended from the final of the 2014 Sochi Olympics after a positive drug test, but later cleared and allowed to compete. So I guess it was some sort of thing that he appealed, and they were able to look at it more closely and be like, "Oh, this is what you took. Okay,
Gotcha.
misunderstanding, whatever." So
got it. We're going to move on to some milestones that I think are worth mentioning. So Ovechkin scores number 886 and simultaneously became the 11th player to reach 1,600 points, which is pretty wild. Nine to go, 18 games left. That's basically a goal every other game. What are we thinking? How's this panning out?
I think one or two multi-goal games and we're looking real good. I mean, I think those would be huge for him. I mean, one game like coming up in the next week or so, if he can bang two, we're sitting pretty.
Mac?
I mean, selfishly, I've mentioned it on here before, but I am going to the Minnesota Wild game at the end of this month, and I believe now after the Ducks game last night, because we're recording today, Wednesday, March 12th. If I'm not mistaken, there's 8 games between now and that, with that Wild game being the 8th game or something. So I would really need this man to step on the fucking gas for like 2 weeks straight. It's not out of the question, but he basically has to score something tomorrow. Against the he's got to have a good road trip here against the Kings and the Sharks coming up.
My younger brother, who you guys know lives in New York, is going to Caps Islanders at UBS, and that's one of the ones that a lot of people have circled. So
Ooh.
I don't know, we might have boots on the ground there, just saying.
I've heard I've heard a couple people tell me that they know somebody who has bought Caps tickets for around 100 or 200 somewhere in that range per ticket and then immediately flipped them tickets like in that general vicinity of
Right.
that range and immediately flip them and like triple their profit like that kind of
Not
stuff.
surprised.
I was like, do I should I buy some Caps tickets?
It's getting
I could
out
use
of
a couple hundred
control.
bucks.
Yeah, Ticketmaster is not your friend right now, trust me.
So I have been meaning to ask this question for several episodes, probably weeks at this point, and I keep forgetting. And now that we are talking about this, I'm just curious what your guys' thought is. Obviously, when Ovi breaks the record, the team's going to come off the bench. There's going to be some big in-game celebration ceremony. It's a historic record. Do you think that there will be an off the bench celebration when he scores the tying goal?
That's a great question.
One I've often wondered,
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
right?
I had thought about just in general. I was like, yeah, everyone's gonna jump off the bench, but I guess I was kind of just picturing the one to beat.
Right.
Right.
But I
That's
don't know. That's actually a very good question. Like,
it made me
yeah,
think.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
I don't know. I feel like
I
we
mean,
we haven't seen it. Like we've never seen someone do this before, so I don't have
yeah,
anything to compare it to.
there's no playbook. Yeah, I think I mean in a perfect world, he scores like a game winner in OT that ties the record or something like that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then the whole place can just go nuts and they can clear the bench. And then the one to
Yeah.
break the record can be whenever during the game, the next
Yeah.
game.
I
Like
just
that.
really hope like either the tying one or the breaking one is at home.
Yeah.
uh,
Give the fans something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Like
so sick.
that is the one thing I've thought about is like when he ties it, it's like, holy shit, he tied Wayne Gretzky's
Yeah.
record, but
Right.
it's not like
Like, put it
it's a
this way.
weird awkward
God
thing.
forbid, obviously, I don't want to jinx anything. Let's say it's the last game of this season and he ties it, right? But then what if he never breaks it? What if the world blows up or something? What if something
Yeah.
between happens between now and next season? Obviously, I'm not trying to like
Yeah.
speak bad things into the world, but like think about that. You kind of have to celebrate both because if the other
Right.
one never happens, you didn't celebrate the fact that this man is now tied with, that he too sits atop the league.
Yeah, it's just, it makes you think. I don't know
Yeah.
how that's going to get handled.
I don't
I
know.
had someone was asking me the other day, they're like, "Do you think they're gonna like stop the game?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're gonna stop
Yeah.
the game." Like I wouldn't be surprised if every broadcast that's not on that game cuts to that game, something like that. But I would assume Gretz will be there because he said he's going to, I think when he
He
gets
will.
within like five, right?
Yep, him and Bettman.
I don't know if
That's
Bettman's
hilarious that Gretz is just gonna go to every Caps
right.
game for the last like couple weeks of the season.
I don't know if like Gretz goes on the ice. I don't know if Bettman goes on the ice to
I think
say
they do.
something.
I, I think they do.
In the middle of the game though, or
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. I think they're
I feel
gonna.
like though, I mean, hey, they brought the Stanley Cup out before game one last year, so all bets on how
yeah.
they're gonna do this are off.
The other thing while we're talking about like the logistics of this whole thing is like, what do you think? You gotta okay, picture we reach a scenario where he is one away from tying, and now and you're playing the Capitals, whatever team you are, you're playing the Capitals. I gotta think that like the coach of whoever the opposing team is like shadow the fuck out of this guy. Please do not let it happen
Yeah.
against us.
I
Like
don't want to be on the
I do
highlight
not
reel.
want the bullshit happening during our game, like that kind of. I gotta think nobody in the NHL wants it to happen against them.
No.
No.
No goalie wants
I
that
mean, yeah,
much
that
in their
too. The
face, too.
the biggest goal celebration of all time after and just
Literally.
you just let a puck in the net and now like there's a parade on the ice.
Yeah.
Like, but, I mean,
Yeah. I don't
yeah,
know. If you're watching on YouTube, maybe drop a comment. What do you think that they're gonna do for the tying goal? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. Um, anyways, one other milestone worth mentioning, Nathan MacKinnon, a guy that we all talk about and pump tires on this podcast a lot, became the 100th player to record 1,000 career points. He did it in 856 games. He is the fourth fastest active player to reach the milestone, only behind McDavid, Sid, and Malkin. Fun fact, he actually got his 900th career point earlier this season in October, so he just is knocking milestones out within the same 82 games, which is nuts.
He's unbelievable, man. I feel like every year he just takes things a little bit further, finds another gear, and his compete level, I think, is just unmatched. And I know we've started talking about this recently. I firmly believe there should be a discussion for who the best hockey player in the world is right now.
Yeah. Uh, Maybe back-to-back MVPs, Four Nations MVP. I'm repeating myself from a couple weeks ago, but it's certainly seeming like that. I did see one thing on Twitter that was pretty interesting. I hope this is real. I think I was just scrolling really fast, but I'm pretty sure someone asked him about Bedard, like how, things have gone so far. And it was pretty interesting because MacKinnon was like, yeah, he's a teenager and he's a point per game player. I would have killed to have been that.
Yep, I saw
And
that.
and people forget that
Saw that
like
too.
as good as MacKinnon is now, I think he's 29 or 30, close to that. I think he's close to 30. Wasn't like this in his first, three,
No,
4 years in the league.
and that those Avs teams were really bad. Like they sucked so hard.
Yeah, so it's a hell of an improvement from Nate Dogg over the course of his career.
Pop quiz. Who did Nathan MacKinnon score his first NHL goal against?
This would have been a great trivia question. Um, phew. Why do I want
Who's the
to?
team that everyone scores their first NHL goal against? Who loves giving them
Capitals.
up? Absolutely.
Damn.
Yeah.
Do you
Wow.
know what goalie it was?
I don't, not off the top
Probably
of
would
my
have been
head.
Holtby, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
He was drafted in 13, so
Could have been
whoever you're,
Holtby, or could have
yeah.
been Grubauer or something like that, or I don't know. Actually, no, maybe not.
Maybe not. Who's the backup in like 2014?
Did we
Justin Peters?
did we still have like Varley and Nuvi back then?
Maybe. I
We
don't
might
know.
have. All right. Anyway,
Nuvi might have been busy chasing down Radko's sister at that point.
God. Okay. We are going to talk next about Rod Brind'Amour's comments in the whole Carolina situation as this whole ranting and things unfolded. We talked about it a lot last episode. Got some great feedback from some Canes fans, so thank you so much for that. Brind'Amour said in I think it was on radio, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
He was talking about the Rantanen situation, and this is a quote. He said, when he showed up, he told me there's four teams I'll go play for, but you're not one of them. He's talking about Rantanen. There's 29 other teams he wasn't going to. The better question is, should we have known that before we signed him or attempted to sign him? So Rod the Bod kind of, maybe not purposely, but certainly seems like it, kind of throwing some shade at Tulski, the GM of the Hurricanes, as all this went down. We obviously know the Hurricanes have a history of losing players to free agency. It happened with Gensel last year. Here's Rantanen saying that he won't sign. And let's just say Natchez is pretty darn happy in Colorado from all the games that I've watched since that trade. So I don't think he's too upset. So with all of this, like what is your reaction to this quote from Brind'Amour?
I think it's valid, honestly, to be like we should have known more about this before we went out and fucking traded for a guy that didn't want to be here. I mean, that's you got to do your homework on a situation like that. So if that is the case, then I think that's fair criticism. It's never a great look to be a coach criticizing your general manager, but I do think Rod has kind of earned that right in a way. Like, I think it's pretty clear that he is not the issue with the Carolina Hurricanes, if you ask me, over the last several seasons of like why they haven't been able to push deeper into the postseason than they have, or like win a cup in these last few years with where they've had what their fan base would consider a cup caliber team. I think that it's pretty unanimous. Rod is not the problem there. So I kind of feel like he's earned the right to make those sorts of comments. Um, yeah, obviously wouldn't hear a guy like Spencer Carberry saying something like that, a guy who's in his second year in the NHL. It's all about the context. So I think in general, is it a bad look to have a coach criticize your own GM? Probably, but I think in this particular situation, it's warranted, and I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, and we know the kind of guy that Rod is. I mean, he's going to call it like he sees it with his players, and this is exactly how he's going to run this team. So I think for him saying that, Mac, you nailed it. It's, hey, we didn't do our homework. Hey, next time you swing for the fences, you might want to dial this in a little bit more. And I think he's absolutely in his right to say that.
Yeah, it's pretty on brand. I agree, Nick. He calls it like he sees it. Um, it's certainly odd to kind of air out the what's the term, like air out the closet in front of the room or something like that. I don't know if I'm butchering that or not, but
Air out the dirty laundry.
yeah, something around those lines. But it, yeah, I don't know. I guess considering Tulski is in his first year as GM, like, and Rod's been here for what, 6 or 7 years now, that he kind of has earned that right. Like, hey, dude, you're the new guy on the block, and you kind of just screwed me out of my best offensive player. And no shot at Stankoven, but he's not Marty Necas right now. It's just not even close.
Correct.
So yeah, you kind of put them at a disadvantage, and they always push like cup, 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 and now they just lost their best offensive weapon. And Stankoven's fine, but he ain't Marty Necas. So
It's kind of funny to me that like they put so much time and effort into like getting this like star forward between Gensel and between Rantanen and all the drama that surrounded this forward group. Whole time don't have anybody to stop the puck. Whole time.
yeah, yeah, they don't have a
Like
goalie.
what the fuck? Am I not crazy to be like the I know Canes fans are gonna flame me because they think Piotr is that dude. I
Right.
don't. I
No,
don't. I'm sorry.
I don't think they genuinely believe
And
that.
don't
I
even get
think
me
they,
if you're listening to this and you want to try and be like put some respect on Freddie Anderson's name. I've had him on my fantasy team time and time and time again, long enough to know that dude, he's a band-aid and he's not the guy.
Yeah. I it's weird because they seem dead set on continuing to add to what they have, yet are absolutely unwilling to move any of their core. Like this, like the time they moved Natchez, that was the first time we've really seen them move one of their big pieces. It seems like
yeah,
they're dead set on keeping Svechnikov, who you could say Band-Aid as well. Aho. I
yep.
mean, yeah, I don't really know what the end goal is here. People were saying Vegas of the East for a little while, but yeah, I don't know.
Well,
There's some similarities, but I don't know if I would compare
yeah,
them.
there's some. I'm gonna call it like it is. I mean, Jack Eichel is in a different stratosphere than Aho, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Not even
Thousand
close.
thousand percent.
Petrangelo, like you're talking captain of the Blues, ace defenseman, hoisting the cup. Like they don't have that. So yeah,
Did you
it's a little
guys hear
different.
Biz baiting Canes fans yet again, saying they don't have a number one defenseman?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, and then yeah, and then I think he got
uh,
guilted into saying like, oh, I think Slavin could be, but
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's
um,
just funny. I love it.
He's a
worth
stud. I'll give the Canes that.
worth
Yeah,
mentioning
yeah.
because I do think that despite how horrible all this trade deadline stuff went for the Canes, they're 2-0 since the Rantanen trade, and they've beaten two of the best teams in the NHL. They beat Winnipeg 4-2 on home ice, and three of their four goals came from new guys. Jankowski had two, Stankoven had one, and then last night they beat Tampa 4-1 at home as well. So I watched a lot of that Tampa game, maybe a little bit of that Jets game. They look really good. They look pissed off, to be honest.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure that's what exactly is going through that room. I'm sure after bringing a guy like that in and then, it not going great for 5 days, basically. Yeah, I'd be a little bit ticked off too if I was like, oh, you don't want to be here? Okay, let's light this thing up. But I always hesitate to dive into numbers around the trade deadline because it's such a weird time of year. You're getting new guys brought into the locker room. You're either gelling as a team and figuring it out right away, or you're kind of having some ups and downs, figuring out where everyone's going to play, who's going to fall into what role. So I feel like the next 3 weeks are really going to be like gut check time for Carolina. Like, show us what you're made of now.
Yeah, I would second that. And in terms of Metro standings, I mean, it would certainly seem like they're going to play either New Jersey or Columbus with the way the Devils look right now. It could be Columbus in round one. I don't know. That's
I think that New Jersey Carolina series had potential to be a lot more entertaining. Now without Jack Hughes, I don't see it being very entertaining.
Yeah, there's so many. We're going to talk about this in a little bit. There's so many storylines that could be created in the first round of the playoffs in both conferences, but we'll talk about that more in a second. I know you guys wanted to talk a little bit about Alexei Protas on the Caps, and then we'll talk about the wild card race.
Yeah, big shout out to Pro. Picked up his first NHL hat trick last night against the Ducks. It was awesome. He got the assist on the empty net from Ovi. I think everyone and their sister on this planet thought Ovechkin was going to shoot the puck towards the empty net, but of course, good guy Ovi gives it up to give the kid his first hattie, which was awesome to see. Just some numbers to run through for how good this guy has been this year. In his first two seasons combined, he had 7 goals, 17 assists for 24 points, and 91 games played. So across those 2 years. Last year, he had 6 goals, 23 assists for 29 points in 78 games played. This year, 28 goals, 30 assists, 58 points in 65 games
And
played.
he hasn't missed a game either. He's played every single night.
Correct. And he's one of like what, five 20 plus goal scorers in the Caps lineup this year. It's unbelievable.
And if I'm not mistaken, not one of those is a power play goal. I,
Correct.
He has one power play point the entire
Yeah.
year, and I
that
think it
is
was kind of an
nuts.
accident. He does not get power play time, and that's mostly there's a lot of people crying. Again, I like criticizing like the younger Caps fans because I think a lot of them don't know what they're talking about. There's people being like, he's got almost 30 goals, and Carberry won't give him a sniff at the power play. He's better than a lot of the guys on the second unit. You got to remember, this is a dude who like, I mean, Nick just ran through his last couple seasons stats. He had some conditioning issues.
Yes.
He had issues with his shot, his passing. This is a guy who put in a ton of work this offseason to be able to produce this type of season. And so hats off for him for that. But you also got to remember he kills penalties. He's like on our
Yes.
he scores shorthanded goals. He's out there with Tom Wilson every like as soon as we go shorthanded, it's Tom and Protas out there initially. And you got to limit a guy's minutes like that. You can't just immediately throw him into power play, PK, second line, what like you gotta. I think Carberry understands. I think it's really smart. I'm sure he's thinking, okay, there's got to be a way I can get this guy some power play time, but you gotta think about that. You can't just throw him out there and bump his minutes up significantly like that. Another stat I want to mention. Here's every this is from Big Head Hockey, so shout out to them. Everyone with more 5-on-5 points this season than Alexei Protas. Leon Draisaitl, David Pastrnak, Nikita Kucherov, Nathan MacKinnon, Sidney Crosby, and that's it. That's the list.
Wow.
That's that's nuts.
That's amazing,
I don't
dude.
think you change a thing. Like if you want him on the power play, like yeah, I get that's a big boy. Like,
Yeah.
you know, the big boys
Six
know it's
five,
tough.
227 or something like that. Or
Yeah.
sorry, 6'6". His brother, who's also 18 and in the capital system, by the way, is a little shorter, 6'5".
Yeah.
So
Just a bit. But apparently, according to Alexei, much more skilled. And if
They
you've been
have they have
following,
the scouting report shows that Ilya Protas, baby pro, is allegedly more skilled as an 18-year-old than Alexei was at that time. So
correct.
we'll see how that develops, but
I
very
would I
exciting.
wouldn't change a thing for his minutes. I mean, he's
Yeah,
clearly humming. I guess
right.
I somewhat get the argument, but you tire him out. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
Mac, I
agree.
think you make a great point. Carbs has multiple options for the power play. We've seen that this year. They've done the three-headed monster thing with Ovi Carlson and Chikrin up top. You've seen Dubois do the half wall, Willie in the bumper. I could go on.
Yeah.
What it's hard to, forego on the PK is a guy who's 6'6" with a hockey stick in his hand, just taking away lanes, taking away passes. I mean, that's invaluable to me.
What's crazy is if you watch, just Google like Alexi Protas, like highlight reel or something like that. He, the way he skates, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense how big he is and how fast he is. Like, I guess he's got bigger strides, so maybe that's why.
Yeah.
But the way he's moving, you like see him and you're like, oh, no way is he gonna beat that guy who's like 5 steps ahead of him to that puck. And the next thing you know, he's just there. And if you can get to the puck with somebody, he's so damn big, he'll just body them off. Like
Yeah.
he's learning to use his body a little more too. So,
And
and again, this
the
guy's only
two-way
fucking
play.
24 too.
That's a great point. I mean, the two-way play this year has been unbelievable. The back checking, like as soon
Yeah.
as the opposing team grabs the puck and starts a breakout, if the Caps just had it in their zone, he is all over that center. I mean, the stick is just annoying the living crap out of it, which I love to see. I mean, as long as you're not taking a an Alex Simmons special, but
His stick is probably taller than I am, by the way.
exactly.
Yeah, no, he's playing great. Caps are playing great. I hate that every episode I have to come on here and listen and talk about how good the Caps are. I can't wait for the playoffs because I need that like oxygen at this point. But we are going to talk a tiny bit about the playoff wild card race. We are going to start out east. Currently, as it stands, we've got Ottawa at wild card one, Columbus at that wild card two, and then you get the cutoff. And then chasing the playoff spot would be Montreal, the Rangers and the Bruins, who a lot of people forget are still in the race despite selling off their, good players at the deadline. So, um, here's one stat that I think is really important. And if you're a Wings fan, You definitely know this. The Wings are in that too. There's a bunch of teams in it. I guess we'll cut it off at the Wings, who have lost six in a row, by the way. The Red Wings have the hardest strength of schedule remaining in the entire NHL for the rest of the season. Their opponent average winning percentage is 600, so that's pretty brutal. Um, that does not favor them for this playoff chase. Columbus has a pretty hard schedule, sixth hardest. I'm just trying to look. Washington, we just talked about them. They've got one of the easier ones. Um, and Ottawa has an easy one. So it's going to be tough for any of these teams chasing Ottawa or Columbus to make any noise. Do you see any of these teams chasing knock one of those two out of the wild card spot?
It's tough. I mean, you've got three of them tied with 68 points, just outside. And then I feel like the big thing here is Jersey. We just don't know what's going to happen with them. They could survive, stay afloat, and adjust, or they could go completely free fall. And I genuinely, at this point in the year, have no idea what way that team is going to go.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. I don't know. I don't even know what I would want to happen if I was a Devils fan at this point. I mean, that's just such a dagger to lose a guy like Jack Hughes. And I know they've got some other capable players, but it's just like it's like the season we lost Oshie in the playoffs. And I'm not trying to say I know Jack Hughes is like an even more important player to that lineup than Oshie was for us. But when you lose somebody in that top six forward group, it almost doesn't even matter if they're your top goal scorer or your fifth best or whatever. It's just an energy guy that completely changes the dynamic of a team when he's in the lineup versus when he's not.
Spot on.
It's interesting because Jersey did play Columbus. I believe it was on Sunday.
Hmm.
They ended up taking that. They ended up winning that game 5-3 against Columbus, which was a pretty important win considering this Metro chase. Um, I have a future on the Rangers, so I'm begging the world, the universe, God, whatever, to give me Rangers Caps round one. I pray for it daily. I need it like oxygen. They haven't been playing all that well. And if I look at they blew a big game the other day against Ottawa, which was really brutal for this playoff chase. The Rangers also have the ninth hardest schedule remaining this season. Columbus six, I think I already said that once, and then just repeating Detroit one. So I don't know if the Rangers are going to make the playoffs, boys.
Rangers got to play freaking the Lightning two more times. Still got to play the Oilers again, the Canes again, the Leafs again, the Cats again. It's not going to be easy. And I mean, they still have to play Columbus again too. That's another bubble team that is going to be desperate for points. So, um, I've said it before. I don't want to play the Rangers in the first round, mostly because of Igor. However, I would in a heartbeat accept a matchup against them before I would against the Ottawa Senators. That is the team that, out of all the teams the Capitals could realistically end up playing, they scare me to death. I want no part of the Ottawa Senators. I love what they did at the deadline. Obviously, they've got Brady Tkachuk, and something we haven't been able to say about the Ottawa Senators for quite some time now is they have perfectly capable goaltending, not just
Yeah.
Allmark, but Marilyn, right? Isn't he the backup? He's
Yeah.
he's been very good so far.
I would be shocked if the New York Rangers don't make the playoffs. Like, if you don't make the playoffs with that roster, you need to fire everyone. Like, even the guy that cleans the toilets, fire everyone. Like,
Yeah,
I
that
mean, am
that
I
would be.
wrong?
No, you're not. That would probably be the biggest disappoint. That would probably be other than maybe Nashville, would be the most disappointing team of the year compared to like preseason expectations.
I would have to say that would be the best hockey team on paper to not make the playoffs that I probably have ever seen.
It would be up there. It has not gone as planned. It's going to depend on Columbus. I really don't see Ottawa choking this away for a variety of
I
factors.
don't either. I think they're going to get in.
Their
But I
So
just
momentum
I
is going
just
the right way.
I just
yeah,
pray that they get that first wild card spot and that Toronto wins the Atlantic. I think Ottawa versus Toronto would be a fantastic matchup.
it would.
That would also give us Panthers versus Lightning, Battle of Florida, plus those two juggernauts, one being out in the first round. I ain't mad at that. So that's my thought process.
Yeah. There's like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of different storylines. Like Um, Don Waddell, who used to be the GM of the Hurricanes, who swung and missed in Gensel last year, he's now with Columbus. So like if they played, it would kind of be like going back against him. We could get a Kachuk brother round one, which would be
Dude,
awesome.
That would be crazy
If
too.
that like the league needs that, right? At some point, it
if
has to happen.
if Boston somehow, some way manages to get in, they could play Marchand round one. Like
Oh
that would
my
be
God.
can't miss television. We're gonna shift the conversation out west for a sec. Minnesota's in a free for all. They're battling some pretty key injuries. Kaprizov, he's been out, and they need him back desperately. They can't
Erickson Ek
score.
is out too, isn't he?
Yep, that's a big one for them.
And Brodin, I believe, is out. So they have
Well, in other news, water's wet, but yeah.
yeah, they've got a big injury bug there. Calgary holding on to that wild card two spot, fighting for their lives, rooting for them. It's hard not to root for Calgary. Kind of a good underdog story, rookie goalie who's taken the bull by the horns. Uh, the I'm trying to think of what the appropriate term would be for this next team I'm going to read. Probably like the desperate housewives of Vancouver, sitting at that third spot right outside the bubble, chasing the playoffs. And then you got St. Louis and Utah. I don't know. Who do you guys want to see in?
At this point, I just hope the Canucks plummet because nothing's going to change until they do. And I'm tired of having to do this with them every year where they're either like the third team in the Pacific, one or two of the wild cards, or they're just on the outside looking in. So I don't know. St. Louis is everyone's favorite anomaly, right? It just doesn't matter as long as they get in. We've seen that in the past from them.
Yeah. Here's what I'm going to say. Out of all the teams you just mentioned, I'm just going to separate the Wild out for a second because they've got a lot of injuries. I don't really know what to make of them. I don't know who's going to be healthy when. So let's just put them aside for a second. But Calgary, Vancouver, St. Louis, Utah, all of those teams, whoever wants to make the playoffs, go for it. It's kind of like taking a dog to get Burger King before you put him down. It's like, you're not gonna fucking do anything. Like you're not winning
Jesus.
the fucking cup.
Holy shit.
I'm sorry, it is. That's what it is. All right.
Oh
They're not
man.
fucking going all the way. None of them are. So it's
Yeah.
like, go ahead, frolic in the forest, have a
Right.
nice little like time here, and then we're gonna take you out back behind the barn.
Yeah.
So
Basically what happened to the Caps last year.
yeah, no, exactly.
I don't know. I mean, do any of those teams realistically have a chance? Probably not. I do think if you asked me out of Calgary, Vancouver, St. Louis, Utah, which team could pull off an upset against probably Winnipeg? Um, I think the Flames might be the ones, only because of goaltending. I
Hmm.
really like Dustin Wolf. I think he's going to be a Calder finalist this
Yeah.
year. They could get goalied, and when you get those rivalry like Western Canada matchups, you just kind of, I don't know, you never know.
I do think there's a small chance a team like St. Louis could do it. And honestly, the only reason I'm even saying that, I'm usually so hard on this hockey team. I don't feel threatened by them the last several years. Bennington kind of made me think differently after Four Nations. Like
Yeah.
I
It's a good point.
I think he's capable of dialing the fuck in when the lights are on, and I think I could see him being like, "Fuck it, we made the playoffs, let's fucking go," and just go on a tear again.
Yeah.
Could be cool to see Utah in their first season make it. I know some
Yeah.
people have mixed feelings about that. I think Clayton Keller in playoffs would be electric,
That would be
personally.
fun to watch.
Yeah.
I again, one last thing on the Canucks. It's like, do we even know if Demko would play in the postseason? Like,
I don't, I'm dismissing that organization from
right.
conversation at this point.
Together, it's like you put him and Freddie Anderson together. It's like they could almost play a full competent season of goaltending at this point.
Almost, yeah. Um, all right, last question about playoffs, and quick answer, and it'll be, nothing more, nothing less. In all likelihood, we're getting Stars Avalanche round one, which is gonna rock so hard. Probably the two top cup contenders in some people's minds, going head to head in round one with Rantanen playing his old team. Who would you take in a 7 game series right now, knowing that the Stars would have home ice advantage if the playoffs started today?
Do they have Heiskanen?
Sure, yes.
Dallas.
Mac.
It's so hard. Just gut feeling, I feel more threatened by Colorado at the moment. Um, just based on pure vibes alone and pure Nate Mac, junkyard dog, and that kind of shit. But I do love what Dallas did at the deadline. I like their goaltending a whole lot more than I like Colorado's. I know Colorado was able to put a band-aid on their goaltending situation this year and make it work, but I do wonder if that holds up in the postseason. I'll go Dallas.
I'm
Harry.
going Avalanche. I'm going
Whoa.
Avalanche.
Surprise,
Yeah, I
surprise.
was gonna say,
Yeah.
are you surprised? I think I pick the Avalanche all the time, every year, every round. So
Right.
shouldn't come as a surprise. Probably a little biased, but
Let me ask you guys this. Is this a bigger matchup than what Dallas had to do in the first round last year, or is last year's bigger?
I think this year's would be bigger strictly because of the Rantanen storyline that's gonna haunt them.
True. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd
it's a
agree.
good point. I think on paper that Vegas team was better than this Avs team, but I'm
Yeah.
totally in agreement with you that the Rantanen thing is what pushes this over the edge.
Yep.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to watch. All right, we're gonna do a quick gambling segment and then we'll get you all out of here. Reminder that this segment is brought to you by Prop Tracker, your one-stop shop for all outlier prop bets, shots, rebounds, receptions. Golf season is upon us. You can bet on that too. You name it, this app tracks it. It'll give you all the data you need to make the best possible prop picks and parlays for NCAA basketball and golf this spring, as well as playoff hockey.
You can
Use
bet over under 8 baskets pulled down by Cohen Carr in March Madness because the dude is a dunk machine.
You can use the link in any of our social bios to get your first month free on us. All right, real quick, to no surprise, Columbus continues to be an over machine. 8 of their last 10 games over 5.5 have hit, and then 7 of their last 10 games have gone over 6.5. So right now, as it's been all season, CBJ overs, they continue to just hammer it. This next one, I think I'm scared of this because I don't want to make a playoff push and I want a good draft pick, but I fear that when stakes are low and there's no pressure, that the Penguins' Lord and Savior Tristan Jarry somehow comes out of nowhere and plays the best hockey of his career. He has back-to-back wins since getting called back up to the NHL. He's 2-0, beating the Wild and the Golden Knights. He's got 30 plus saves in both of those wins, and he's got over a 940 save percentage in both of those wins. Didn't get to watch the Minnesota game. I got to watch the Vegas game. This guy, like, where was this all season? We could be in the wild card spot right now. We could probably be Metro 3 taking over Jersey spot if we got this all year. So he's hot right now. I don't know. Maybe ride Tristan Jarry, dare I say?
Is this kind of like what happened to the Pats, where it's like all they had to do was lose on the last day of the NFL season, and that's the game they decided to win?
Yep.
And then they didn't get the first overall pick?
Yep. Yeah, it certainly feels like it. Watch the Penguins. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, what are they, 9 points out of a playoff spot? I don't think they're going to make it, but I got a feeling they're going to make it interesting. Toronto, they have gone over 6.5 in 7 of their last 8. In those 8 games, they have scored 4 plus goals in 6 of them. So Toronto is tuck and twine, if you will, at the moment. The Canucks, just a sorry franchise and organization. Um, they've scored 3 goals or fewer in 14 straight games. And conveniently, that streak started the game before JT Miller was traded. It's a struggle right now in Vancouver.
It's just bad. I don't have any other word to describe it other than bad.
It's a little embarrassing.
It sucks because I actually want to like this team. I love Quinn Hughes. I love their jerseys. I think they're one of the more fun Canadian teams.
Yeah.
I want to see them succeed, but it's just a fucking dumpster fire. Like it's so fucking annoying. I'm not even a fan of the team and it annoys the fuck out of me like what they're doing.
Right. It's just
So
like
I
I'm
can't even
tired of
imagine how
seeing
like
it.
true fans feel, man.
It's like watching the same like bad episode of a TV show over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, last year when they made the playoffs, I was pulling for him. I loved
Right.
it. I thought it was awesome. I love Tocchet as a coach. But yeah, it's been tough sledding there this year. We're gonna finish up with some props. Adam Fantilli, he's on fire since moving up to that first line center with Monahan going down to injury. 22 games, he's got 22 points. He is clicking right now. CBJ, I'm trying to read this. CBJ up 15-3 in 233 minutes he's played with Marchenko and Voronkov. That's awesome. Credit to Dmitry Filipovich for that. So Fantilli props. They're hitting right now. And then lastly,
Just not
of
the other night when we picked them in our parlay. Way to go, Nick. Good job.
course. And then lastly, JT Miller, since being acquired by the Rangers, 16 points in 15 games. He's gotten Mika going offensively, so that's good for the Blue Shirts. A couple of these guys are playing tonight as we're recording this, so maybe not great data for you guys listening, but Nick Schmaltz, Cole Caulfield, Tage Thompson all have goals in 4 of their last 5 games, and they're all at really good values every night. So I would go check that out. But that about does it for the gambling spot here. Any final notes before we get wrapped up here, boys?
I'll just echo what I said at the beginning. God, it feels like a kid counting down to Christmas or something. I'm itching. I'm ready to get to playoffs.
Yeah, I'm ready. It's time. I feel like this last month simultaneously feels so long and short at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, only what, a month away. So
Yep.
hold tight, everyone, and we're excited to see how this wild card race unwinds here down the stretch. But appreciate all the love and support as always. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you in the next episode.